modern-day depictions of a reptilian alien race. The majestic mesas and rugged mountains of the American Southwest are home to many native peoples, including the Navajo, the Zuni, the Pueblo, the Hopi, and the Apache. These tribes have many different beliefs, but their creation myths all share something quite remarkable. All of them share the belief that they came up from the ground. The Apaches and Pueblo Indians, the Zuni and Hopi Indians have a legend that say they emerged from the underground world into today's world, and some of the southwestern people went back underground for safety. The Hopi of Arizona say their ancestors escaped a deadly storm of falling stars with the help of the snake people, who took them to shelters deep in the earth. Today we know of other Hopi legends that speak of ant people who protected them from storms of fire and ice. The Hopi Indians survived cataclysms by living in this underground world with the ant people for a certain period of time, and then eventually they emerged from the underground world back to the surface world. Today the shamans and elders of the Native Americans will tell you that before these people were able to emerge out of planet Earth, they were brought here by star people. These star gods, which according to them and their beliefs arrived from outer space. For decades, stories of encounters with UFOs and alien beings have been told among the peoples of New Mexico's Jicarilla Apache Reservation near the town of Dulce, where there is an alleged underground facility where aliens and humans work together on several projects, nestled in the shadow of the over 9,000-foot Archuleta Mesa. It is from this mesa and mountains that people claim they have seen UFOs flying out of the mountain, and even today New Mexico is one of those places where the most UFO sightings occur. There's no doubt that there is something in this part of our planet that attracts these extraterrestrial visitors. Some of the aliens in these stories bear a strange resemblance to the ancient tales of the ant-like and snake-like beings from Hopi legend, and have a great resemblance to today's depictions of a reptilian alien race. One thing that is strange for sure is the amount of military traffic over at Dulce. The unmarked black helicopters, the heavy-duty Chinooks, all of them spend a lot more time in Dulce than they should if there was nothing going on there. So yes, there are reasons for that much military activity, and they are not normal. This gives you an idea, just briefly, of what the American Southwestern indigenous people believed regarding the ants and snake people. Now, I do have a piece here from a man named Draco S. from the Quora website, titled Reptilians, the Ancient Ones, and the Anunnaki, Understanding the Difference. I'm honored another place trusts in me, so therefore I am trustworthy. At present, just like you, I cannot afford to eat every day. Whenever this situation pisses me off, which is quite often, I remind myself there are countless others who are in way worse off. That is always a sobering thought. And then I focus on every tiny thing I can ferret out that's good in my life. Depending on how bereft one is, they can take a moment or half a day. If you can't find anything good in the present time, scan your memory banks for the past pleasure moments and recall them. Once again, depending on your level of depression and despondency, this can be easy or difficult. But once the one pleasure moment is accessed, a cascade phenomenon starts to occur. If nasty memories surface or ones that cause pain, just ignore them and say, not going there, no sale, and doggedly pursue more pleasing reminiscences. Try it. It works for me most of the time. Crying is good too sometimes if nothing else works. Very cathartic. Nothing wrong with unabashedly bawling your eyes out. Cleans all the dust out of your eyes for a start. All things must pass. All is transitory. Your long, dark tea time of the soul, this too will pass away. The malign ones may appear to promote or cause chaos, but in truth, they are in fact terrified of true chaos. The type of chaos espoused by these types is not chaos. It is their imposition of order. And although the results and events may seem chaotic to humans, they are not. All events are orchestrated, as you know. They hate and despise the true chaos, the real goddess, not the misempowerment version of her, because she cannot be controlled. The energy that pervades and connects all, the power from which all forms arise, can never be controlled in the manner the malign ones would wish. It can be diverted, twisted, turned and inverted to create a labyrinth with which to bemuse and amaze. But as you have pointed out, the unexpected happens when you least expect it, and that's the very thing that they hate and fear the most. As has been said, the best laid plans of mice and men go astray. Look to the ideas, things, and all that are suppressed the most, for within the wisdom contained therein are clues to the undoing. Deepest purple, I have 3 words for you. Nihil illegitimo carbondonium. Don't let the bastards grind you down. Take a lesson from the little birds. They sing even though it is winter, for they know the spring will come again. And while they wait, and times are hard, they have those such as yourself who feed them, and in turn, they feed your soul with their presence. Do not fear that the cessation of the crop circles was a loss of contact or a bad omen. It was not. Rather, it was simply harvest time in southern England, where 90% of the circles form. There will be more circles in due season. Like you, I too was aware that I was here to awaken the lost tribes of time, and indeed this was the original plan. However, as we have discovered, this has proved exceedingly difficult, nay, almost impossible. Contingency plans are being drawn up, and our only task at this time is to simply watch. The watcher reports and adjustments are made. As you have reiterated, there is no free will in a world where people are covertly manipulated and controlled, and one would think this alone would be a wake-up call for humans, now that it has been exposed. But as I have said, this mission is proving to be much more difficult than was originally anticipated. No one ever said planet taming was easy, especially when high magic is afoot. We must be ever vigilant to avoid the machinations of Dr. Von Hamsterwheel and Colonel Balzer Schweddy. In the meantime, I've been gleaning further info. I've turned my attention once again to the obscure ancient Earth text. I share with you the following article. It was written to post in a forum of which I am a member, but to date, I have not posted it. It is my hope that it will help you feel better. The text confirms that the Elder Gods or Anunnaki were in fact not the first gods, and that a race or races known as the Ancient Ones predate the arrival of the Elder Gods at Anunnaki. The Ancient Ones had come from stars many eons earlier and had established an extremely advanced culture. The Anunnaki, though initially accepted and very technologically advanced themselves, subsequently caused immense problems and war broke out. It seems this was no small battle indeed. It changed the entire face of the earth and irrevocably altered the course of life thereon. The texts go on to say that the Elder Gods of the Anunnaki produced and created mankind as a workforce. Were these Anunnaki the legendary dragons as some have suggested? Or do legends of these magical creatures in the nebulous world refer to an ancient race that existed prior to the arrival of the Anunnaki? Were they eradicated or modified by this invasion or rebellion? There are many who view the Anunnaki genetic modifications on this planet as an upgrade to the race of beings existing on Earth at that time, but considering the overwhelming arrogance and warlike behavior of the Anunnaki themselves, for some of our world leaders, who claim to be their descendants through their affiliations with various secret societies, it makes one wonder. As a species, man has more genetic defects and diseases than any other. Was the Anunnaki gene manipulation an upgrade, or was it in fact a downgrade? Strangely, it clearly states in the Sumerian text that the genes of the commander of the army of the Ancient Ones, combined with Anunnaki genes, were used to create man. Could be the true story behind the fall from paradise. It may be seen as odd that the Anunnaki would combine their own genes with that of their ancient enemy. However, it seems they viewed this as some type of punishment or binding of the spirits of the Ancient Ones. According to Sumerian sacred texts, the Elder Gods, the Anunnaki, battled with and destroyed the Ancient Ones, and specifically Tiamat, their queen, the Ancient of Days, who is described as the Great Wicked Serpent, or Mighty Dragon. Also described are her many strange allies, serpent men, dragons, sphinxes, centaurs, dogmen, and scorpion men. The titanic battle raged for 10 years or more, laying waste to the earth and its inhabitants. The Anunnaki eventually won the battle and divided up parts of the earth between them. It is only after this mankind was created as a slave race. The Anunnaki were a race of warlords. They often fought amongst themselves and involved humans in their endless power struggles and petty jealousies. It has been said that the myths of centaurs, satyrs, unicorns, dragons, elves, etc. were the result of early genetic experiments of the Anunnaki. But the Sumerian texts state the creatures and monsters were allies of Tiamat. Were the original dragons, elves, and fairy folk, in fact, the Ancient Ones spoken of in the text? Did the Anunnaki destroy a civilization, the mythical land before time, by tampering with genetic codes, attempting genocide on a global scale, and deliberately concealing any memory of our reference to this civilization? Do they teach mankind wonders, or did they just twist and pervert ancient wisdom? No doubt there were runaways hidden in the caverns of the earth, and also other survivors who had escaped the unwelcome attention of the Anunnaki and their captive breeding programs. The texts tell us there were renegade Anunnaki as well, and it is speculated that Enki himself may have returned to the underworld. From these came the myths of Hollow Earth, Shambhala, Agartha, and legends of great treasures and mines guarded by the gnomes, or genomes. Elves and others may have taken refuge in the mountains and forests and desolate places, giving rise to their own myths. As the world came more and more under the influence of the Anunnaki, many of these too may have fled below the surface. It is well documented that there are vast networks of tunnels and huge caverns beneath the earth, some caused by volcanic activity and some artificial in origin. Many strange cults sprang from these stories, many of which persist to this very day, which in and of itself has caused much mischief. It appears these elder gods or Anunnaki were terrified of the Ancient Ones and dreaded their foretold return, fearing they would reclaim the earth and take revenge on them. For this reason, they devised many magical and other occult diverse means to prevent this from occurring. After all, it would mean that the slaves that the Anunnaki created, who were contained in the genetic codes of the Ancient Ones, might awaken and seek their freedom. One can see that this would cause the Anunnaki overlords to be terror-stricken and would necessitate stringent control measures be imposed. Thus was born religion, and other hierarchical structures of control, suppression, and subjugation. And what of humans, the odd genetic consequence of all this meddling? Is this the reason why humanity seems to be suffering from collective post-traumatic stress disorder? As it says in the Sumerian texts, man is born of sadness, for he is of the blood of the Ancient Ones, but has the spirit of the elder gods breathed into him. And his heart goes to the Ancient Ones, but his mind turned toward the elder gods. And this is a war which shall be fought always, unto the last generation of man, for the world is unnatural. Does this not imply that the previously understood natural order was disrupted in some fundamental way when the civilizations of the ancients was destroyed? Is the famous cradle of civilization in reality a coffin of a bygone golden age lost in the midst of time? We are told that civilization abruptly emerged 6,000 to 8,000 years ago in ancient Sumer, now known as Iraq. Could it be that at the time everything was altered by belligerent beings with dubious intent and ruthless methods? In the Anunnaki texts demonstrate their fear and hatred of the Ancient Ones by describing them as crawling chaos and blaming them for all manner of hideous horror. But the texts also reveal the Anunnaki themselves as fierce, lustful, incestuous, bloodthirsty, deceitful, jealous, and conquering, with vast interest in keeping their creations ignorant about their true origin. That being the case, we can speculate that the ways of the ancients were diametrically opposed to those of the Anunnaki. Were the Ancient Ones aware of, and did they utilize chaos theory and the fractal nature of consciousness in the creation of their forgotten world? And humanity, blissfully unaware of all this for the most part, still struggles on living the lies and bearing the terrible karmic burden of these unspeakable deeds. But it is also written, know that Tiamat seeks ever to rise to the stars, and when the upper is united with the lower, then a new age will come of earth, and the serpent shall be made whole, and the waters will be as one. Speaking of water, have you ever had any doubt that your thoughts affect everything around you? This info will put that doubt to rest. Humanity may yet become as wise as a serpent or dragon and as gentle as a dove when we recognize and accept our own personal power and wield this power with wisdom and responsibility. Then what is gained is communion with the earth and star energies, converse with the dragon currents in the lands below and the constellations above. When this power is exploited, abused, or unacknowledged, these energies take the form of one's shadow and will be a source of trouble until resolution is born. Always remember, we came to this place to transform errant energies, thereby reconnecting and reweaving threads long broken, to restore that which is lost. I know only too well that to be a dragon on this earth in these strange days is fraught with peril, but it has been so long. In this bad place, it is easy to become ensnared in the collective thought form, which is extremely hostile to beings like us. We must ever strive to remember, redeem, and refine our own being. And as we do, we will find that being in touch with the mysteries of the universe. This scratches only the surface. I'm making some significant connections, for me at least, of late. And if you are interested, I continue to share them with you. Looking forward to hearing from you again. Be at peace, my brother. Lo-Fi, Draco S. So it's a very interesting take on the Anunnaki, the reptilians, and the Ancient Ones. In this, it would seem that the reptilians were allied with the enemies of the Anunnaki, namely Tiamat. Tiamat, who was destroyed by Marduk. Marduk being one of the chief gods of the later Babylonian pantheon, which would supersede the Sumerians. We can't talk about reptilians without mentioning the work of one David Icke. I would be remiss if I did not mention David Icke. Mr. X asks, did the Earth used to be called Tiamat during ancient times? Tiamat was believed to be another planet entirely that existed between Mars and Jupiter, and its destruction created the asteroid belt. Some say Tiamat was destroyed by Nibiru, the home planet of the Anunnaki. So, there is something there, definitely something interesting going on there. But again, I must mention David Icke. And I have this work of David Icke in front of me called The Reptilian Connection. If you are new to my work, the most bizarre information you will find on this site is concerning the reptilian connection. I understand that. It's quite something to absorb from our conditioned version of reality, but then that's the very point. If you want to keep something from people, give them a version of reality and possibility that is so far from what is really going on that even if the truth comes to light, it'll seem far too ludicrous and extreme for most people to believe it. Indeed, if you do your job well enough, the people will laugh at the truth, call it insane, and ridicule anyone who promotes it. To truly understand how all the information on this site fits together into one coherent whole, which it does, read my book, The Biggest Secret. But for those of you who have yet to do so, here's some basic background. When I reached the point some years ago where I put together the structure through which a few people control the direction of the world, it was clear that this network of secret societies and covert groups manipulating global politics, business, banking, military, media, and so on could not have been put together in a few years or decades. It had to go back a very long time. So I began to trace it back into what we call history. I did this in the knowledge that for some reason, bloodlines and genetics were vitally important to these manipulators, the Illuminati, or the illuminated ones, illuminated into knowledge that the public never sees. I followed this trail back comfortably to the time of the Crusades in the Middle East, the 12th and 13th centuries, that kind of period, and it went on far back into the ancient world in prehistory. There, all over the planet, you find ancient legends and accounts of gods from another world who interbred with humanity to create a hybrid network of bloodlines. The Old Testament, for example, talks about the sons of God who interbred with the daughters of men to create the hybrid race, the Nephilim. Before it was translated into English, the passage read the sons of God, plural. But the Bible accounts are only one of so many that describe the same theme. The Sumerian clay tablets, found in what we now call Iraq in the middle of the 19th century, tell a similar story. It is estimated they were buried about 2000 BC, but the stories they tell go back long before that. Tablets talk of a race of gods from another world who brought advanced knowledge to the planet and interbred with humans to create hybrid bloodlines. These gods are called in the tablets the Anunnaki, which apparently translates to as those who from heaven to earth came. The ancient accounts tell us that these hybrid bloodlines, the fusions of genes selected from selected humans and those of the gods, were put into the positions of the ruling royal power, especially in the ancient Near and Middle East, and advanced cultures like Sumer, Babylon, and Egypt. It happened elsewhere also, as you will find, for example, in the amazing information provided on this site by African Zulu shaman Credo Mutwa in the incredible Credo videos, Reptilian Agenda Parts 1 and 2. He tells the same story from the Black African tradition that I have uncovered elsewhere in the world. The accounts of the serpent race in ancient cultures are simply endless whenever you look at the serpent, reptilian symbolism in relation to Anunnaki, and various other versions of these gods is equally widespread. We see this in the Bible, for instance, with the serpent in the Garden of Eden, a story which clearly comes from the Sumerian account, as does the story of Moses and the Bushrells, a story told about a Sumerian king long before the Bible. This is why I found it so astonishing when I was told by Zechariah Sitchin, the best-known translator of the Sumerian tablet, that there was no evidence of a serpent race in the ancient world. Well, of course there is. He also strongly advised me into relation to this serpent race. Don't go there. Why? When the evidence, ancient and modern, is so enormous. From these bloodlines has come the origin of the divine right of kings, a belief that only certain bloodlines have the God-given right to rule. The truth is, this is not divine or God at all. It is the right to rule from the reptilian gods by way of your hybrid genetics. These bloodlines later became the royal and aristocratic families of Europe, and thanks to the Great British Empire and other European empires, they were exported to the Americas, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, and right across into the Far East, where they connected with other reptilian hybrid bloodlines. like those most obviously in China, where the symbolism of the dragon is the very basis for their culture. These reptilian-human hybrid lines became the political and economic rulers of these lands occupied by the European empires, and they continue to rule these countries to this day. The United States of America has been home to hundreds of millions of people since 1776. What's more, these people came from an amazingly diverse genetic pool, and yet, wait for it, the 42 who have become presidents of the United States are all related. 33 of them alone go back to Charlemagne, one of the most famous monarchs of what we call France. He just happens to be a major figure in the story of these bloodlines and their expansion out of Britain, France, Germany, and elsewhere. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the British royal family, and the ruling political and economic families of the US and the rest of the world come from these same bloodlines. This is why the so-called Eastern establishment families in the United States interbred with each other as obsessively as the European royals and noble families have always done, and similar families across the world. It is not because of snobbery. It is to hold as best as they can to the genetic structure, the reptilian-mammalian DNA combination which allows them to shape-shift. You also see references on this site to shape-shifting, a phenomenon in which witnesses have reported seeing people, most often those in positions of power, transform before their eyes from a human form to a reptilian one and then back again. You will find much about this in The Biggest Secret, and Credo Mutwa confirms exactly the same experiences in Africa. Once again, ancient and modern accounts support each other. The ancient gods of the Indus Valley, the Nagas, were said to have been able to take either human or reptilian form. Former U.S. President George Bush, incidentally, is mentioned more than any other person in my experience in relation to shapeshifting. This is why his son is being brought in through the 2000 presidential election. Presidents are not elected by the people, they are selected by blood. Al Gore and his Democratic opponent in a one-party state is also from this bloodline. Look almost anywhere in the world in a position...
Well, he looks like one, come on.
Look almost anywhere in the world...
He was rich from tobacco, so that's not like, they were never like,
So they were profiting off of tobacco.
Yeah, they're pretty wealthy.
System scan complete.
The reptilian symbolism you see around you, with gargoyles, coat of arms, and advertising and so on, is all part of this. These gods cannot take over the planet openly because there are not enough of them. So they're doing it covertly by appearing human. Movies like They Live, The Arrival, the first, not the sequel, and the US television series V tell the story of what's really going on. I urge you to think about watching these movies to get up to speed if you are new to all of this. New World Order and conspiracy reachers also have political and religious belief systems to defend, and while they uncover one level of conspiracy, most reject and even ridicule what I'm saying about the reptilian connection. That's fine, but unless they encompass the biggest picture, they will never, in my view, understand what is truly happening all around us. As Gandhi said, even if you are in a minority of one, the truth is still the truth. And as a result of the waves The Biggest Secret has caused and the new information, experiences, and accounts the book and this website have attracted from all over the world, there's a growing understanding that this apparently bizarre, crazy story is actually true, that the world may indeed be controlled by reptilian bloodlines that hide behind apparent human form, and this is just the understanding which puts together all the apparent unconnected information on this site into a very much connected whole. Here are some examples. Religion. If you want to control a mass population, you have to disconnect them from the true knowledge of who they are and their own infinite potential to manifest their own destiny, control their own lives. You have to persuade them they are insignificant and powerless so they will live their lives in accordance with that. This is where religion has been one of the most effective weapons of the Illuminati and the reptilian bloodlines. It fills people with the fear of a judgmental God and tells them unless they believe the truth of all that can be found in one book or belief system, they're going to hell, will experience some other extremely unpleasant consequences. Different religions have also been wonderful vehicles for dividing and ruling the people through arrogant, self-righteousness, interreligious conflicts. The reptilians created their religions for this reasons, and the key players within them do not even begin to believe the nonsense they parrot to their followers. They just want the population to believe it, so it'll be easy to control.
The greatest bullshit story ever told.
This is why you find so many famous Christian evangelists, for example, who are actually Satanists. Their Christianity is just a smokescreen. Medicine and media. The suppression of true knowledge of healing and the domination of drug and surgery-based medicine ensures that the human physical body operates at far less its optimum potential. This is the reason for the blatant misrepresentation and suppression of so-called alternative forms of healing, which have been around for thousands of years longer than modern medicine. Food additives, fast food, fluoride in the water supplies, the poisons we put on our land and therefore eat in our food and drink in our water are all suppressing not only our physical health and vibrance, but most crucially our brain functions and intellect. A fully awake, mentally sharp population is the last thing you need if you want to control them. Thus, the reptilian bloodlines also put so much emphasis on controlling education and the media. This allows them to feed us a constant diet of brainless crap, like game shows, while the news media tells us what the controllers want us to think. Most journalists are so brain dead themselves, so lacking in understanding of what they are part of, that they, like most of the population, play a part in advancing an agenda they don't even know exists. Mind control. This is obviously very related to religion, which for me is the greatest form of mass mind control yet invented. So is advertising and television, but mind control goes much deeper than that.
Oh, yeah.
The Illuminati reptilian mind control projects have produced literally millions of mind control robots in endless walks of life, who are all programmed to carry out the Illuminati agenda. There are many electronic ways that this is done today. Some of the key methods are trauma-based mind control. This is where people are traumatized through abuse, violence, being forced to witness and take part in human sacrifice rituals, and countless other horrors. Such experiences activate the mechanisms in the mind which shut out memories of extreme trauma. One expression of this, which many people have experienced, is when they cannot recall memory of a bad car crash. They can remember before and after, but not the impact. The mind puts an amnesiac barrier around the memory so we don't have to keep reliving it. This is a good thing. But the Illuminati have developed methods of using this technique to traumatize a mind over and over again until it fragments into a honeycomb with disconnected amnesiac barriers. Then they perform these different fragments of mind, alters as they call them, with different tasks. The tasks are pre-programmed to be activated with trigger words, color, sound, or whatever. Once the trigger is given, that program locks the person in and they'll do whatever they've been programmed to do. This could be to have sex with a famous politician, which they will not remember, to assassinate somebody like John Lennon, to all kinds of crazy things.
I would love to interject some stuff here
Oh, go right ahead.
compared to Star Trek and and that type of thing. You know, I wonder how much of this stuff they even realize they're even doing in modern day Star Trek when they're creating it to, you know, just create something so torturous and traumatic that the people can't even remember what the episodes are about even. They use the flashing lights and the sounds just to kind of implant this sort of mass suggestion in the audience that it's, you know, it's good or do their bidding or you're a racist or whatever the fuck their message might be. And these people just don't have any sort of critical thinking or understanding of it. And you see that all over the place. And then they end up, you know, burning down a Wendy's or something. I don't know. I mean, just say.
Yeah.
Because they're so desensitized to violence and stuff because you see it all over the place and everything.
See, that's the funny part. People are desensitized to seeing violence. Most of these people, if they ever felt any real pain, they'd shit their pants.
Right? Right? I'm just saying that you see all this shit in marketing and stuff, and I've been seeing a lot of this. Like, I compare a lot of stuff with, you know, like cult techniques and power of suggestion, and, you know, like when you're in a cult and you have to abuse somebody else. It's like cult mentality as well. It's really similar to that. Because, yeah, or, you know, even getting into like what really horrible parents will do to their children sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and they'll like have, you know, a sibling abuse another sibling
Yeah.
in whatever way, you know, without really getting too graphic. But yeah, I've seen like you know, accounts of that.
Sure.
It's a great way of having control over your victim, and then they look at you like a god or, you know, a holier than thou sort of figure even.
Yeah.
I mean, look at how some of these people treat Ryan Johnson, for fuck's sake. Like, just constantly kissing his ass.
What's that called where they do that with the like visual stuff with mnemonics, right? Mnemonics. Isn't that what it's called?
Well, that's when you
Like when the news channels start and the stuff is spinning, it sort of sucks you in.
No. Mnemonics is when you use clues to memorize something.
Yeah, that's like every good boy deserves fudge.
Father Charles goes down and ends battle. Battle ends and down goes Charles's father. Now I don't have to remember keys ever again.
But yeah, so many of these sort of controlling techniques are used for so many nefarious sort of things. Like, and this is why I always say, like, well, I usually kind of just compare it to marketing and stuff, because marketing techniques are exactly the same thing. They just convince you like it.
Well, if you go back to somebody like Ed Bernays, who literally wrote the book on propaganda,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it is a mind control tool. Advertising is if ads did not affect you, they wouldn't cost $1 million a second when they're on the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I watched this guy Dan Lok. That's Dan Lok. He's a copywriter. It's how he made a shit ton of money, amongst other things. But he tells people, "You're not trying to pass an English class here. You know, I don't want your sentences to be perfect." He says, "I want you to connect with people, because unless you connect with people and you're able to tell them a story, they're never going to buy your product."
Well, and that's what you hear too with like Star Trek and Star Wars and stuff, like J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy sitting there saying, "Oh, we want you to feel something. We want you to feel all this emotion and have this connection to it." They don't care if the story makes sense. They just want you to go along for the emotional roller coaster of it.
Yep, except there isn't one because they didn't write a story.
I bet J.J. Abrams is reptilian. Or at least, I think they're under control of it. I think they're just fucking... I think they're bitch boys. The Kurtzmans and the Abramses and those sort of people. I don't think they're smart enough to be the ones in control.
And all of this manifested itself in the notorious mind control project MK Ultra. The China Lake Naval Weapons Center in the California desert was one of this premier bases of operation. The most effective time to start this process of creating human robots is before the age of 5 or 6. I mean, I look at it this way.
Mm-hmm. Get them when you're a kid.
You get them when they're young, you know. Like I see the kind of advertising that is directed towards kids because I watch kids programming with my child, you know. And it is very effective. It is very effective because, you know, he'll see a toy and then he's like, I want that.
Mm-hmm. Gotta catch them all.
Yeah,
Well, why do
exactly.
you think we still have this attachment to shit like Star Wars, you know, all this time later? And
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it becomes a cultural touchstone, and then people are willing to, you know, fight tooth and nail over something as silly as a movie.
Mhm.
You know, I
Because
mean,
it's
it's
a
just
little bit
at the
more-
end of the day, you know, it's just a movie, and some
Yeah.
people have literally made it a religion, which goes back to the first point David Icke was making here about religion. Just because you're not going to a church and worshiping a god doesn't mean you haven't made a religion out of something else.
Mhm.
System
You know?
scan complete.
Like Star Wars.
Yeah.
Exactly, like Star Wars, like pro wrestling, like
Oh, yeah.
sports, like the local football team.
Yeah, and then politics has become the next religion.
And politics is another one. I mean, it's all part of an us versus them mentality that is fostered by these clandestine groups.
That's back to human evolution of tribalism, though, because humans evolved to be safe in the pack and safe in the herd, and, you know, because what's the next tribe over going to do to you? They're going to steal all your shit, take all your women, and you're going to be dead. So you kind of band together and stick to your own. And that's why people kind of form bonds where they have things in common, because evolution, you know, there was safety in people who feel the same way and think the same way and are of the same tribe and the same kind.
I mean, like Little Italy, Chinatown, Germantown.
Yeah, people are self-segregating. I mean, look at the Planet of the Apes, for example. The people would segregate, you know, when they're in the 70s, the actors were segregating by who they were playing, and you had all sorts of people under the masks, but all the gorillas sat together, all the apes sat together, all the chimps sat together, and all of the or the other orangutans sat together.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and the same thing happened in. I remember hearing an anecdote about that from JMS from Babylon 5 that all of the alien extras would self-segregate and like sit together at lunch. And all the Minbari and all the Narn would be together and all the
Isn't that crazy?
because you want to find something in common with people, you know?
Yeah.
People want to connect. People have evolved to connect.
Sure. Fact.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's
No.
just that's one of the things that they can really take advantage of when they get into
System scan
when they get down to like manipulating people into marketing and selling things. Because I always say, I never trust anybody who says anything because they're always trying to sell you something.
True. Pretty much. Unfortunately.
If you look at so much shit that's going on, it's all just people trying to sell shit.
Well, you know what? That's one thing that I try to avoid doing here is, I present this information for people's own evaluation. Like tonight we're talking about the work of David Icke. And just because we talk about the work of David Icke doesn't necessarily mean that we agree with everything David Icke says.
Now, I don't think there's reptilians, but I think there might be something, some other sort of DNA that the royals and a lot of people do have that might actually be some sort of alien. I don't believe it's reptile though. But it might be something where they can use post-hypnotic suggestions so you think somebody's shape-shifting.
Like a Manchurian candidate or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they do talk about that with deep trauma-based use to kind of create these kind of robotoid people. But like this is part and parcel of David Icke's, whole bag here. The Biggest Secret, The Truth Shall Set You Free. Those are like his cornerstone books, regarding the reptilian agenda. The idea of these extraterrestrial beings from beyond the stars, or maybe from Earth, as some people claim that these creatures were already here. Like we talked about earlier, were they already here when the Anunnaki showed up? Did the Anunnaki do battle with these beings? When we talked about the Orion Wars before, and the Orion Wars happened largely in the constellation of Orion. They started in the constellation of Lyra, where the Lyrans had already spread out through the galaxy, colonizing and leaving their mark all over the place. The Lyrans came here and left colonies here of humans. So out there in space, there are humans in space. It's like the one thing that I think Star Wars rather portrays, and Star Trek I guess does it too, portrays pretty accurately, is that there's this belief that there are alien beings who look and sound and live just like us. That they could walk amongst us and you wouldn't even know they were an alien.
Probably.
And I think that's probably the case. I think that, it's very likely life would have developed in similar ways. Or if we're talking about, like with the Anunnaki, seeding life on other worlds, or the Lyrans planting colonies all over the place. That's a possibility. But one thing that is common to all these stories is that the enemy of the Lyrans during the Orion Wars were the Draco-Reptilians. When we hear about groups like the Ashtar Command, who are supposed to be the good aliens out in space, defending the Earth from the machinations of the evil reptilians from this, the Draco star system. It's always the reptilians who are considered to be the evil serpent race. And we've talked about the Brotherhood of the Snake as far back as that goes in ancient history. And that's, I think, what is so interesting to me. Like, me, I love the ancient world. Love it. If it's got anything to do with the ancient world, I'm obsessed with it. I mean, that's why I've got Gilgamesh statues behind me, because, these ancient stories, these ancient civilizations, to me, carry so much weight. When you think about ancient Sumer, like, this is the first civilization. The first that we know of recorded in history. The first people to write things down. When you look at Egypt, who was around for how many dynasties? Which united Upper and Lower Egypt. We talked about the Scorpion King, one of the first monarchs of Upper Egypt the other day. These ancient civilizations, they also, in Egypt, the snake was considered sacred. You look at the Egyptian symbolism of the serpent. Even in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the serpent makes an appearance. The serpent eats the plant that restores youth. which is why the serpent sheds its skin, according to the story. So we are talking about even the biblical serpent, who's conflated with Satan. I got a super chat here from Grendel13. Thank you very much, Grendel13. Much appreciated for $2. You don't say anything, but I do thank you very much. So thank you. But yeah, these are very interesting topics that we touch on here, especially because of the history, I think, to all of it. Paul Corpus Christi points out clones, hybrids, Nephilim, giants. Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
You gotta think about it like this too. You're gonna hear a lot of stories here that, of course, you never heard in school because they simply didn't have time to get this far into it. I mean, they have time in school to teach you, like, first there was Egypt, then there was Greece, and now we're here. You know what I mean? They don't have time to get into ancient religions from far off lands, so it's a really good opportunity to learn something.
Sure.
Well, I don't think there's any impetus for them to teach about these kind of things. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about it, nobody taught me in school about the Epic of Gilgamesh. They taught me about Beowulf, which is horrible. Beowulf is fucking horrible.
Apparently, you, sir, have never seen the movie version starring Christopher Lambert.
No, I saw the cartoon version that had what's her name in it, Angelina Jolie.
Well, he's a Highlander, so it's better.
Still, I think Beowulf's terrible. I hated it as a kid. I hate it now. I think Beowulf's just boring. Give me the Epic of Gilgamesh any day.
Yeah, Beowulf's a little. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Just
just
like spoofy ones and like yeah.
You didn't like CG Angelina boobs?
No, I didn't like anything about that. Rudy the Boxer, Genesis 6, Steve Quayle. Yeah. Genesis, we talked about Nephilim just last week. We did a show on the Nephilim. But this touches on the Nephilim as well because, you know, the idea of that genetic manipulation, the idea that there was something involved that was tampering with the genetics of the human race early on, that also ties into the idea of the Nephilim. We got some Beowulf fans in the chat here.
Oh no!
Over here slagging on Beowulf, but yeah, we got some Beowulf fans in the chat. I just don't like Beowulf. Give me the Epic of Gilgamesh. Mary says it wasn't a good movie, but I like the story of Beowulf though as much as Gilgamesh as well.
And that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't slag on anybody for what they like. I think the Lacerda files. Yeah, the Lacerda files are also very part and parcel of the reptilian milieu. You know, you've got the Lacerda files. You've got Pinder, the Lizard King, who I wanted to get to in a little bit. Let me see what time it is, because we started so late. So it might end a little early tonight, because I've been staying up way too late. I was actually considering starting the show an hour earlier from now on, maybe starting at 10. But I'm going to kick that around with the panel and see what they think. So we'll talk about that after the show. But I do want to talk about Pinder, the Lizard King. Now, this is by D. Finley from the Great Dreams website. Do you know the Lizard King Pinder is real? According to David Icke, the hierarchy goes like this. Reptilian royalty, winged reptilians, with the highest caste being the albino type similar to Pinder. Reptoids, wingless reptilians, they are the ones described as having larger scales on their back and 3 fingers with an opposing thumb. Greys, described as either being drone-like slaves of the reptilians or an extraterrestrial life form allied to them. And humans. We're at the bottom, but why doesn't that surprise me? Reptilians are described as being between 5 and 12 feet tall. There are several types, also from David Icke's research. Pinder attends all the major satanic ceremonies in Europe, and then flies to California for the rituals there. Later in the book, The Biggest Secret, Icke says that Pinder, the Marquis de Lebeau, travels in a white limousine. The white code is understood by judges, police, military, and it means look the other way or do not prosecute this person. On page 453 of the same book, Icke states the Queen makes cruel remarks about lesser initiates, but is afraid of the man codenamed Pinder, who is higher than her in the satanic rank. Pinder apparently bears a resemblance to Prince Charles, Arizona Wilder says that Pinder is Charles's real father. Finally, Ike surmises, along with Arizona Wilder, the possibility that Princess Diana was pregnant at the time of her murder, and the child could have been Pinder's rather than that of Dodi Fayed, and the child was sacrificed in a ritual ceremony. Diana was sacrificed because she would not cooperate with the organization. Ike insists that the only strain of reptilian race is antagonistic towards us. To consider all reptilians evil is like considering all humans the same way, patently false. So we also got the top Illuminati family names, of course. Most powerful being Pinder, followed by the Rothschilds, Bruce, Cavendish, who are the Kennedys, de Medici, Hanover, the Habsburgs, the Krupps, the Rockefellers, the Romanovs, the Sinclairs, the Warburgs, and the Windsors. These are the families that run the New World Order and all the stooges that work for them. They all worship Satan, and they all take part in human sacrifice and ritual abuse. If you do your own research, you'll see these families have bred themselves since ancient times, and they're obsessed with keeping their bloodlines pure. These are the sickest people on the planet, and their hold is going to be broken as the world wakes up to their murderous deceptions around the world. Remember, the truth will set you free. The original mother goddess, after whom a slew of deities, including Queen Semiramis, Isis, Diana, and others were fashioned, was Ninhursag. The commander of the Anunnaki was Enlil, half-brother of Enki. The book of Genesis and Exodus were based on the Levites, initiates of the Egyptian mysteries, based on Sumerian stories and accounts. Between 11,000 and 4,000 BC, catastrophes were visited upon the earth, destroying the advanced civilizations of the Golden Age. The Anunnaki are said to have arrived 450,000 years ago. Their leader was the winged albino White Draco. The owner of this seal can be identified from the cuneiform inscriptions, which translates Seal of Mushesna Naruta, Governor, son of Narutia Ashur, Ditto, son of Sam Ahunah, Sara Ilanto Ditto. Sam Ahura Shar Ilanya was ruler of Sadkiana, Arban in eastern Syria. In 883 BC, and an Assyrian vassal, subject to the firm control of Assyria and enjoying the wealth and security that such political domination provided. During this period, seal designs were often cut on hard stones using cutting wheels and drills. The image is similar to two wall reliefs from the throne room of King Ashurnapal II, who reigned from 883 to 859 BC at Nimrud. The king is shown protected by a guarding genie sprinkling holy water from a bucket with what might be a fir cone or sponge. From what star constellation do these reptilians originate? That is Draco. What is the difference between full-blooded reptilians and reptilian hybrids? Full-blooded reptilians using a human form to hide their true nature. Hybrids are reptilian-human crossbreed bloodlines who are possessed by the reptilians from the fourth dimension. Where did the reptilian Aryan crossbreeds emerge from after the flood? At the Caucasus Mountains. What do the lions symbolize? The sun. So Pinder the Lizard King, he's the guy in charge of all the reptilians here on Earth. At least as far as the story goes.
You know what this always reminds me of when we talk about the old families of Europe is the episodes of the X-Files when it finally got to the top of the organization. They were just calling some townhouse in the countryside of England with some old man in it, and he would just like rule the world from his library.
Oh shit, these days you could rule the world with a cell phone
Could.
and a couple apps.
Now, I saw a good question in here that I wanted to get to very quickly. Where was it? Now I lost it. Alexander 302. First of all, Alexander 302, it's good to see you. It's been a long time. Glad to see you back. Alexander 302 asked, what about the DuPont family? Well, there is a CIA document, I think that was written by Fritz Springmeier, that talks about the DuPont family being involved with the Illuminati. But generally, you don't see the DuPont family's name when they're associated with the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati for some reason. But in the Philadelphia area, the DuPont family, especially down in Delaware, was very big. I think I did a video called the Hell House.
The
Or
DuPonts
Hell
were one of the lesser families that came in the era of the Vanderbilts. There was another one, too, that's still a rich family in the United States, but I can't remember the name. Because it is on some documents, but not on all of them. Because they aren't an original family. They're not of the original 13, was it, right? Is it 9 or 13?
It's 13, yeah, it's the 13 Illuminati bloodlines. John Kissel points out the flag of Wales is a red dragon, and you do see dragons on heraldry a lot, especially in China. The first empire was descended from a dragon. The first emperor was descended from the dragon, the Dragon King, and that's how the legend goes, of course. So yeah, I mean, it is definitely a wild topic we're dealing with here. There's a lot of different areas of thought on it. David Icke being the foremost person to deal with this stuff. Now, I know we've talked about reptilians before. That somebody did an art installation of what a dinosaur would look like had dinosaurs evolved. I'd love to find that picture here. Let me see if I can share that with everybody. Yeah, here we go.
It's like a thumbnail, isn't it?
No, it's actually this picture.
His name was Earl. They had a whole show about him. He pushed over trees for a living. No one knows why.
I think that's like the thumbnail beat.
Because them goddamn trees was looking at him funny. That's why, man.
No, Tina, I used the thumbnail. I put
Probably.
the thumbnail up. This is not the thumbnail. It's
I said I
different.
think it looks like the thumbnail.
Well, I mean, yeah, this is what an advanced,
Yeah.
evolved humanoid
Right.
dinosaur would look like.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
You would imagine.
Yeah,
so,
that's
yeah.
about right.
Mhm.
Almost looks like us, especially with the opposable thumb, the big toe, the residual tailbone, the big brain, the binocular vision. And if you look at humans, it kind of looks like reptilian a little bit.
Especially the older we get, yeah.
Yeah, look at your knuckles. It looks almost the same as like chickens. Like if you look at their feet, their knuckles and stuff like that, the way their skin folds, it's
Mhm.
almost identical.
Yeah, good point, Finn.
We're just
Christopher
softer.
P. Norris says slee stacks. Yeah, John Kissel also points out slee
Oh.
stacks. Yeah, slee stacks.
Ooh,
The land
yeah,
of the law.
exactly.
And in actuality, the first snake men to ever appear in fiction appear in the works of Robert E. Howard, who did Conan the Barbarian. It's a Conan the Barbarian story where the first snake men in fiction ever appeared. That was in the 1930s.
Wow.
Yeah. Followers the set, wasn't it? Something like that. We're supposed to be.
I'm not sure. Well, I mean, if you see the even the movie Conan the Barbarian,
Mm-hmm.
what's his name? Tulsa Doom, played by James Earl Jones.
Mm-hmm.
He's a snake man. He turns into a snake man at the end of the movie.
Such a good villain. I was like, how you get to be so damn lucky you get to be Darth Vader and Thulsa Doom?
Yeah.
Right?
I was like, that you just go home at the end of the day and be like, all right, I'm gonna die peacefully.
Mhm. It's that great voice he has.
Well, yeah, if anything, he's got that stage voice pushes from that deep diaphragm, so you get that resonance kind of shit comes out.
Mm-hmm. Hangs in the air.
Mm-hmm. But more than anything, it's the resonance, the tone of his voice. Same thing with like another dude that's got a voice like that is was it not David Keith David? You know, that's got one of those just real distinct voices.
Sam Elliott.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Deep voices, yeah.
Frameshift drive.
Sam Elliott though, he's got that like too many cigarettes and whiskey kind of great
Right?
voice.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, who knows how many of these movie stars are reptilians? I mean, we can't
Right.
even begin to
Exactly.
wonder that. Dennis Martin says Howard was in Lovecraft's writing circle. That's absolutely true. Lovecraft was very despondent over Howard's suicide. And Dennis also says I suspect Lovecraft had some inside info. We've talked about Lovecraft before. I'm a huge fan of his work. I think he had some real shitty opinions about race, but his work is okay. He's a master of cosmic horror. But I think, at the end of the day, the man was a product of his time, which doesn't make it any better, but you got to be able to separate the era from the artwork, I think.
You know what though? All the works that people have done based off of the stuff he came up with, like
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
don't shit all over that because those people came from all different fucking backgrounds and shit.
I mean, that's true. He laid a foundation that would go on to spawn an entire genre of Lovecraftian horror. But I think that Lovecraft was in ways like maybe perhaps like Edgar Cayce. I think Lovecraft was seeing things and transcribing them down. I think it's a very fantastic theory. It's a very fantastic theory that maybe Lovecraft was having visions like Edgar Cayce, transmitting them down into the stories of fiction, but that's a whole topic for another time.
Good theory, though, Pete.
System scan complete. Fuel scooping.
Azathoth was fucking with him. He's like, oh, you want to see some shit? Here, I'll show you some shit. But that is kind of interesting. Him and Howard's both in the same circle. Like, it's almost like before and after, like all the Lovecraftian stuff. The old gods and to modern time. Then you got Howard, who's basically writing what Conan's time could be like. Literally right after the old gods, were
Frameshift drive charging.
banished or whatever, when they got put to sleep, more or less.
And Dennis Martin points out, Mr. X, I heard that his grandfather was into Egyptian Freemasonry. That's the rites of Memphis Mizra. I've been looking into Egyptian Freemasonry for a while, particularly because I'm interested in a person named Althothus, who was an Egyptian magician connected with the rites of Memphis Mizra. And I know Jake Carr was around the chat the other day, and we were talking about, they bandied that back and forth a little bit. But yeah, I'm definitely looking for info on Althothus. So if any of you guys ever come over across anything about Althothus or the rites of Memphis Mizra, feel free to shoot me an email. There's my link to my emails down in the description of this video. Yeah, I'm always looking for stuff about that. Very interesting. Very interesting topic. There's, you know what? There's scant amounts of information on it. Scant amounts of information. Yeah, but absolutely, definitely something to look into. I mean, I like to cover a wide breadth of interesting topics here. Like tomorrow night, we'll be picking up where we left off last night with our Antarctica topic. So like I said, I would do a follow-up show on that one. I don't want to get so far away that we forget all the info we already covered. Dennis Martin says, that's cool, Pete. Gotta find more info on that. Can you spell it for me? Memphis, M-E-M-P-H-I-S-M-I-S-R-I-M, Memphis Mizra. Right of Memphis Mizra. There's a Wikipedia article on it, but, I want more. You know what I mean? But I'll go ahead and drop it in the chat here for you there. Memphis Mizra. The rites of Memphis Mizra. And Althothus is A-L-T-H-O-T-H-A-S. Althothus. And you can see Thoth right in the name right there. So, you know, and you guys know how I feel about Thoth.
Mm-hmm.
I've made several videos on the character of Thoth. I've got my Thoth statue back here, as well as my Hermes statue, for those of you who know about the amalgamation of Thoth Hermes as Hermes Trismegistus, the Egyptian magician who would have been a tutor to Moses himself. Yeah. And even Moses contends with the snakes. You know, we talk about the snakes in twofold ways for Moses. Moses, when the Israelites all get bit by snakes and they're dying, he puts up the bronze serpent on the stick, and they look upon it and are healed. And also, when Aaron and Moses throw down their rods, who then turn into snakes and eat the Egyptians' rod snakes all up. And then that also gets us into the topic of Janus and Jambres, who I also made a video about. They're two Egyptian magicians that contended with Moses. They also broke the seal of heaven. They had become so advanced in their magical powers, they were able to break into heaven. And they contend with the angels through 7 levels of heavens before they come into contact with Metatron. Metatron, who you will see is pictured in this statue right over here.
Can't find that, Pete.
Right there. That one. There's Metatron.
I can't find it. Is there a name to it?
Janus and Jambres. I think it's called They Would Break the Gates of Heaven. Either that or the thumbnail says it. I'm not sure. It's an old video. It's very old. Jason Peltro says, I once did a DMT with a guy that swore those who rule us were a cult that worship Thoth. The thing is with Thoth, Thoth's like a good guy. He's like the scribe of heaven, which is very similar to the role that Metatron has. Dennis Martin says, cool thing about Metatron, he was Enoch, and Enoch supposedly had God's skin at one point. Well, they call Metatron the lesser Yahweh in the, the Kabbalah. Oh, you found it, Tina. Thank you. Yeah, the gates of heaven. The great gates of heaven. So, yeah, that's a short video about Janus and Jambres if you're interested in that. Yeah, Thoth is knowledge. You know, he is he's a central figure in a lot of Egyptian mythology. He's Thoth is an ascended master, says True TNT. I would agree with that as well. Jake Carr, there you are. Memphis Mizram was mentioned in context to the cipher manuscript in the PDF Secret Rituals of the Men in Black. Very good. Thank you, Jake. Thank you. Now I got to look into the cipher manuscript. Jake, you're a wealth of knowledge. I really appreciate it. And for those of you who don't know, Jake's got his own YouTube channel where he covers a lot of occult information. So yeah, definitely check out Jake's channel. You can go ahead and subscribe to Jake Carr right here on YouTube. His channel's really easy to find. A lot easier than finding this one, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know?
Pretty much. I'll get that link.
Pete, now you did do a video about that Love Pass a long time ago, right?
I never made a short video about that Love Pass.
Oh,
We
you
did
did.
talk about it here on the show, though.
Because I thought you did, and I couldn't find it, and it was getting annoying.
No, I did a video. I do videos on more obscure topics, so generally I try to keep away from stuff like that Love Pass. So, like, one of the ones I did was really good, or that I really appreciate the reception to, and I was very proud to put out, was called The 36. And it's about the 36 hidden Tzaddikim, which is, again, in itself an interesting topic. So, I don't know, Tina, if you can find that one and maybe drop it off. I think it's called the Hidden 36 or something.
The concealed ones?
The concealed ones, that's it. Yes, the concealed one. The 36 hidden Tzaddikim. The concealed ones. God, I don't remember these titles. There's so many of them. There's like 200.
Too many. That's why.
Yeah. Trying to remember all this stuff. So, unfortunately, I'm going to wrap this up early tonight. Normally we do about an hour and a half. Like I said, I've been getting to bed so late. And I have to be up early tomorrow for work. So I would really appreciate you guys being here. We'll come back tomorrow night when we cover the rest of our Antarctica topic. For those of you who joined us yesterday, and we did our whole Antarctica thing there regarding Admiral Byrd, just so much information. It really was a home run of information yesterday. Again, we're going to pick up with that again tomorrow. talking about more of Antarctica and Admiral Byrd's secret diary. We're going to get into that again. So same time tomorrow night. Earlier tomorrow night, I'm going to start at 11 regardless. We're starting on time tomorrow. I wanted to start on time tonight, but we had so much technical difficulties. I'm tired of having this reputation
Couldn't help it
of
tonight.
being
Turn it around.
Tonight
Turn
was
it around.
yeah, turn it around. Just like I lost 20 pounds, we're going to start starting on time.
Good job.
Kimba, I'm here, but I guess too late. Be here tomorrow. Yeah, Kimba, yeah, thank you for being here. Sorry we're ending early. Raul G, have I heard the report about the Mayan calendar? Yeah, it's supposed to be wrong and the world's... you know what? I used to do videos every time the world was supposed to end. I'd make a video about it, and I'd shit all over it because nobody knows the day or the hour, right? That's what the Bible says. So for all the doom predictors, you know, I remember I went to a convention one time, and somebody was standing out front handing out pamphlets that the world was going to end on May 11th, 2011. You know,
That's great.
so yeah, so I don't buy all that. You know, if fire starts raining out of the sky, I'll be the first to admit I was wrong, but I don't think the world's going to end anytime soon. I think it's going through a change, probably for the better. But, you know, with any positive change comes a lot of growing pains.
Look, yeah, didn't I hear the world it's always ending perpetually in 2 weeks?
That's what I say. The world's always perpetually 2 weeks away from ending. But, you know, let's hope that, you know, we'll always, I think all we can do is hope that we always wake up to a better tomorrow. And I think that that's my hope. That's my secret prayer, that we all wake up to a better tomorrow.
Poetic.
So, again, thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate you being here with us night after night, day after day, as we delve into the world of the weird. I want to say thank you to Deranged Lunatic, Red Monarch, Dead Dash Fat Bastard, Grendel13 for your generous super chats and super stickers. They are much appreciated. Never expected, but always appreciated. I want to say thank you to my panel for being here tonight. And before you guys go, check the description of this video. You will find links to my Twitter and my email if you want to get a hold of me. There's a link to the Teespring store where you can get your very own Resist Reptilians t-shirts, stickers, and coffee mugs. I got some brand new designs up there as well, featuring the Abraxas or Mithra in the form of Boundless Time. There's also a Thoth t-shirt if you're into Thoth, and a Hermes Trismegistus t-shirt as well. You're not going to find those kind of designs anywhere else. So please check out the Teespring store. Also, a link to the Patreon. Thank you to my Patreon supporters for sticking with me for so long. And if you're in a position to become a Patreon supporter for just $1 a month, that's $0.25 a week, that's less than the price of a cup of coffee, then please consider doing so. Thank you so much. And as we do, this has been the Creepy Little Book Live, and you've been listening to High Strangeness, the #1 late-night paranormal podcast on YouTube. I've been your host, Pete, and with me tonight were Digitally Modified Organism, Tina Tomazuski, Mecha Random 42, and Jesse Miller at the Crow's Nest. Links to all their channels are down in the description. Go ahead and subscribe. And until tomorrow night, folks, stay creeped out.
Drive charging. Four, three, two, system scan complete. Frameshift drive charging. Four, three, two, scooping complete. System scan complete. Frameshift drive charging. Four, three, two, fuel scooping. Fuel scooping complete. System scan complete. Frameshift drive charging. Four, three, two, system scan complete. Frameshift drive charging. Four, three, two, fuel scooping. Fuel scoop disengaged. Fuel scooping. Fuel scooping complete. scan complete. Surface scanned by 50%. Surface scan complete. Orbital flight engaged.